Well, from the rioting police to the 81-member cabinet in Uganda, this is News Sources. Time for context and opinion. I'm James Smart.
Tonight we put a spotlight on the Supreme Court crisis and whether the dispute will be resolved before the Chief Justice leaves office. I am Julie Masiga.
Well, good evening and welcome to the program. Let's start there. And government now says it has prohibited all, and I quote, unlawful protest on account of looting, loss of lives, and protesters armed. Interior Ministry CS General Kaiseri says the government has a responsibility of protecting lives and property, and that could anti-IBC protests have been anything but peaceful. Here's an excerpt from that presser earlier this evening.
The Constitutional Court did not, and I would dare say cannot, issue an order protecting a violent, riotous assembly. The Constitutional Court issued an order that protected the rights to peacefully assemble and demonstrate.
It is extremely dangerous for anybody to challenge the government decision. The consequences are grave. The consequences are going to be applied. And I don't want to preempt what action the government is going to take. But I just want to warn anybody, this is an order, you will have to be complied with, and will enforce.
All right, good evening, everyone. That's where we start. Start with colleague Lady in White, Rose Novala, looking fresh. Karibu sana to the program again.
Thank you.
And Robin Toskin.
Thank you.
The gentleman in black. Looking fresh as well.
Thank you.
Karibu sana to the program, and of course, co-host Julie Masiga. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. Protest banned, all right? They've been unlawful. They have looters, and protests have been armed. Where do we start, Rosalind?
Maybe the CS should tell us what he means by being unlawful, because what is the threshold of gauging that the demonstrations have been unlawful? Because the Constitution gives them the right to protest. But I think, again, the police are supposed to be there to protect property and ensure that they protect life. But what we are seeing is a confrontation between the police and the protesters. Maybe also the public is agile, because anytime they want to go and demonstrate, what they see is the police already armed, and it's sending a very bad signal to the public. Maybe that's why they also fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Robert?
Yeah, I think all that's happening is based on precedence, because the police will always want to prepare beforehand in the event of an eventuality. And anytime you see the police come out there, they want to enforce orders because there are some people above them, and they will have to always, stick by those orders. Like you just heard the CS Kaiseri talking about it being an order and that you should not challenge the state. But then there's no need for him to be that serious. But as we all know, that in the past, all those protests have always turned violent.
All right, Julie, just bring it. This picketing or protesting is such a new concept in this republic, right? So it's for the first time someone is trying to exercise this, if you like, and we don't seem to have demarcated the borders correctly on who's supposed to do what at what point and when.
Well, I think the Constitution guarantees peaceful protest. And I think the AG was saying that once it turns riotous, then it's no longer peaceful, and therefore it is unlawful. So in essence, they are banning, not burning, illegal riotous kind of and violent behavior in the name of protesting peacefully, which to me sounds like it's well within the law, because every time these demonstrations happen, people die, as a matter of fact. Property is destroyed. Something bad happens. So are we unable to just hold peaceful protests and proceed, or must we now be taken back to the dark ages where we're being told you can't even go on the streets regardless?
I think it's imperative on the political parties, and looking at Raila Odinga, he's got a lot of influence. He wields a lot of influence, and anytime he goes to those public rallies, and I think it is imperative on him to talk to his supporters, to talk to all those movement people and tell them, look, the essence of protesting or demonstrating or picketing is just to pass a message, and that you should not go out there and engage in activities that will jeopardize the businesses. And we are not seeing that from our political leadership.
But Toscan, is it imperative on Raila Odinga to school his supporters on how they're supposed to protest, or should they already know? Because now we're putting so much responsibility on the shoulders of one man, and essentially blaming him for
Okay, me what I think here is that the language that our leaders use, especially you've seen what the CS, the language he has used, that this is an order. And Kenyans know this is a constitutional right. So you're preparing them. You're already preparing them that we are going to use force. So be prepared.
I must bring this into the discussion. Just yesterday, a high court, sat down and said that in this country, the first thing that happens is that the right to protest and picket is completely guaranteed in the Constitution.
Yes.
The police must provide security, put it in black and white. Now, I think the demarcation right now is when it turns rioters, what should the police do? Okay, so do the police, as they say from the statement in the beginning, the statement starts by saying that the government has granted permission to code.
Yes.
The government doesn't have that right.
It doesn't have the
right.
It's a constitutional right. But then, as you rightly put it, that if it turns rioters, what should the police do? But what we're seeing is that all these parties, the government and also the political parties, have actually, failed to understand what needs to be done. And if it turns rioters, what should the police do? The first thing they should do is that they should not use live bullets, because it's about life that we are putting at risk. But if you have a police force that is just hell-bent on passing a message, then that becomes the problem.
And I think it's becoming a circus, because in the National Police Service Act, they know exactly how they're supposed to respond to protests and exactly how much force they are allowed to use. But it seems that on both sides, people know what we're supposed to be doing. The law is there, the procedures are there, but everybody's just doing what they want to do. So how do we resolve the situation?
I think now we also need to hear IPOA coming in, that's an Independent Police Oversight Authority, to also give us a direction. Let us see them take some action. Because again, these are officers who are taking orders from their seniors. And when you're given an order, you are in a disciplined force. You cannot say no, you have to obey. So I think the action should start up, and also with the politicians. The politicians should also tell their supporters that, fine, this is what you're going to do. If it is IBC, we are meeting at this particular place, we proceed up to this place, we petition the particular office that you are going to, and then after that we disperse and go home. But now when you see people coming out, and you see the officers giving warning, like we saw the CS saying, if it is tear gas we have in plenty, that is a very wrong signal to send to a helpless people.
On the other hand, we should act responsibly as citizens, yes?
It's important that
But you see, again, dealing with a crowd, this is a crowd that not everybody is a protester. Even the thieves will be part of that, the procession. So again, dealing with a crowd, that's why the law says the police are there to enforce law and order and to protect everybody, whichever the person protesting and that other person who is not part of the protest.
Fair point, Rosalind. But moving on, despite the government's protestation, the CORD coalition this Monday had something of an unusual demonstration away from the running battles and tear gas, at least in Nairobi's central business district. The relative calm and peace seemed to prevail only in Nairobi. In Kisumu, 2 people were killed and about 20 are currently nursing gunshot wounds. Why do protests in Kisumu turn deadly? Why do they turn deadly, guys? Yeah, so why must they turn deadly in Kisumu in particular, where elsewhere it seemed to be relatively calm, but somehow in that area things just...
I could explain the Nairobi case as issuing from a revision of the standpoints CORD have always been maintained. When CORD began this demonstration, the call for demonstration, they said that we are going to march to IBC at Anniversary Towers and forcibly remove those officials because they have refused to get out. And that set the tone for this kind of riotous acts that we've seen. But by Sunday, by Saturday, the CORD leadership had changed in the way they were calling for this kind of march. And they said that they wanted to picket, they wanted to do a peaceful demonstration. But what we saw in Kisumu is what I always call fanaticism. It's not based on anything.
And we must add that the clip that we just played is a video clip from a phone showing allegedly protesters walking out of a shop with goods, essentially looting. All right, caught on camera, that happened. And also things we've seen pictures from a supermarket that was apparently again stoned, and defaced, if you like. So something clearly is happening and boiling down in Kisumu.
Something generally is not right, and I don't think we should praise what happened in Kisumu, because at the end of the day, what was destroyed, those are people working there, and so many people are going to lose lives. I'm sure the economy of Kisumu will go down based on what has happened. There are so many investors who will stay off Kisumu. And this is not only Kisumu. You could see even in Migori and other towns. And then we ask the question, why these other countries? Is it the precedents we had set in the past, whereby when people are in government, they're just your enemies and you cannot dialogue? I think our leaders should also go back and just talk to our people so that we can change this culture.
And we can contrast this with the Madaraka Day, I think it was celebrations at Uhuru Park, which were peaceful. And it seems that these demonstrations tend to turn violent when the police make.
And in fact, that's what Kenyans, I think, on Twitter were all about on Monday, is that after the court essentially gave the ruling on Monday saying that, well, these demonstrations are allowed and the police should provide security. We saw that the police fizzled out and disappeared from the streets. The protesters got on the street with their leaders, went on to Uhuru Park, spoke for an hour or two, and then went home.
But then how will the police provide this security? Will they just turn up along those streets with their batons, or they always come with all the gear so that in the event of anything that happens, maybe they'll try to deter?
In my mind, I think that what the Constitution is essentially trying to say is that when someone says, Robin Toskin and crew say you want to have a peaceful demonstration, the police would liaise with you and ask you when and where. Then you say would like to have it around the standard group at 10 to 12. They say, fantastic, we will going to make sure that on that road, at that particular point, you are allowed and your supporters to go around the standard group 8 times.
That's the ideal.
Or 20 times if you like.
Situation.
Exactly. And then after that, please leave everyone else to, go about their business on that road as you like. I assume that is what the Constitution apparently.
But what happens, James, when criminal elements now join your protest and start throwing stones and stuff? How do the police know the difference between a protester and a criminal?
Because if we would get a situation whereby the police are interested in liaising with the organizers, they would say, so you're going to tell us are you going to be walking in packs of 20, 50, who are the leaders, all right? How are you going to be walking, what route and what kind of thing? So anyone who's not part of this script would obviously be falling by the wayside, all right? So what are they going to carry? Are they going to carry stones? Are they going to carry fig trees? What is it? You agree with the police way before.
That's why I'm saying that the responsibility again falls on the political parties, that they have to educate their members, that this is how we have to conduct ourselves. These are our ideals. And if you don't educate your supporters, then that becomes a problem to your party.
But I think there's a distinction to be made between a bona fide supporter and just a criminal. Because a criminal is going there to cause chaos.
Well,
so how do you balance
this just takes us back to what I'd said, that whenever you're dealing with a crowd, you cannot select within a crowd that this one is a genuine protester and this one is a thief or a thug. It's just for us to change that culture. This is a culture we have and it cannot change. This is Africa.
In the interim, how does the police respond?
And that's why in today's meeting, the CORD meeting, which they called today, and they say they had over 100 MPs and senators, coming together. I expected CORD in their 12-point, memorandum to have even condemned the violence that we saw in Kisumu. But what they are talking about is just something else. It's only Governor Ranguma who has come out to say that this is not good for the economy of Kisumu. But I expect, as a citizen or a member of any political party, I expect that to come from the party hierarchy to say, really, what happened in Kisumu is unfortunate, before you point fingers.
Well, the problem that I think we have is we have two political sides who are essentially behaving like kids and babies. They don't want, they absolutely, and that's the truth, they don't want to reason and have reason, take over the day, because honestly, this is a very simple thing. I mean, if the Constitution allows, and Again, we would like to believe the Constitution allows that, picketing and demonstration is
Peaceful demonstrations.
Exactly.
Please do not omit that.
If the Constitution allows that, then we anticipate that at least both parties will sit down and work the modalities of how this works.
Sure.
But that's expecting too much from Kenyan politicians. Well, as the standoff continues, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has a proposal on which they will soon start seeking views from the public. Now, the Chepkonga team is proposing that commissioners be employed on a part-time basis. The team also proposes a vetting process for staff working in the commission for more than 2 years to ensure that they are fit for office. In these recommendations go through, they will empower Parliament to appoint commissioners, giving both CORD and Jubilee a say in the selection panel. They will nominate 2 members each, which the Public Service Commission will have about 3 members on that selection panel. Now, the powers of the President to appoint the commissioners will sufficiently be checked. He will receive 9 names from which he will then proceed to appoint these 9 names. That's where we are. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. Someone is proposing something. Let's start with you, Roslyn. You've been in Parliament and you've seen this sausage-making process. Finally, you have a sausage on the table.
I think we celebrated too early, because going by the statement that you got today from CORD after the parliamentary group meeting, and they said that we have withdrawn from any negotiations, any parliamentary initiative. So this leaves us with one side of the political divide, and this is something that has to have a consensus of both sides.
Haven't they also withdrawn? I mean, Duale said he's not part of this thing. Essentially, he's the leader of majority.
He's the leader of majority, but remember, we've been having 3 initiatives. We've been having the national dialogue within the executive. We've been having the parliamentary initiative, that is a caucus that had brought in together like-minded MPs who had even collected over 150 signatures, and they were saying that now they're going to approach this matter in a bipartisan manner. And then now we had the committee now coming in, the 2 committees, that is the Legal Affairs Committee and that one of the Constitutional Implementation Committee. But now that CORD has pulled out, now essentially one arm, and you cannot ignore one arm, then how else are we going to proceed? Will the government proceed alone?
Let me ask. I mean, these were not structural, conversations or debates in the beginning. They were just, willing, as we like, willing by willing seller kind of an ideal. So the MPs who went there in the beginning subscribed from CORD, but they didn't have a blessing, if you like, from their parties. Yeah. Neither did the MPs from Jubilee side. So essentially, they are pulling out from things that they didn't sign up in the first place.
But remember, this is a committee bill that has been published, that is supposed to be introduced in the House. And remember, the Constitution is very strong on public participation. Now, if one arm is not there, then how do you justify that whatever you're coming up with went through and was subjected to public participation?
And the whole point, it seems, of the demonstrations was to get to the negotiating table.
Yes.
Now we are here.
Yes.
Why is CORD refusing to talk?
And that's with tremendous respect for Raila Odinga, who's done really a lot for this country. Anytime he's in interviews and anytime he goes out there, he talks about bipartisanship, the need to build this country as a united, state. Why he cannot reach out to all the politicians, all the MPs from Jubilee as well as also the CORD wing, really fails the test. He needs to come out there, talk to everyone and tell them, look, it's for the benefit of this country. But when you withdraw, you are members from that committee, then that tells you that maybe you are not committed to all this.
But also again, Toscan, if you focus so much on Raila, it's a party or it's a coalition, CORD, an opposition coalition. Where are the other people in this party or the leadership to make some kind of decision here, or must everything be what Raila says?
And I think all of them were there. The principals met with the leaders, all of them, and this was what they resolved. And remember earlier, the 2 committees had said, now let us start something. At least let's show Kenyans we are committed to resolving this. This is a constitutional crisis. For heaven's sake, if we don't start now, when will we do it? We are heading to the elections. And remember the Kriegler report talked about 24 months. Now here we are, less than 15 months. So where are we?
Julie, you've raised a question that is it really about Raila or it's about the leadership? But I can tell you that all the senators who are aligned to CORD are all in that house. They are MPs in the National Assembly. But all those guys have failed to do what they ought to do constitutionally, to put together proposals under which we can remove this IEBC. But now what is happening is that they are following Raila's way because it's not in parliament. He has decided to go to the street.
But
so it is the leadership. People like Mbadi, people like James Orengo, people like Anyang' Nyong'o
in
to
all
come
fairness,
out and make
Toskin,
sure that
there's
happens.
a tyranny of numbers in the House. We just have
But
to
that
admit.
is democracy.
So
that is democracy
the-
because why do we go for an election?
As well
Once
as
a party
peaceful
wins
protest is
more
also
MPs
democracy, Toskin.
or
Okay, so
senators,
the argument,
then
the argument then from the other side is this, that they've already gone before Parliament and put a petition asking for the IBC to be removed, and that petition was defeated by the tyranny of numbers.
Yeah.
That's democracy. So now they're using another democracy, which is the right to picket and demonstrate, which is democracy again.
which is a one-man's game. That's
Why-
Raila was led
I
all that.
don't-
So I thought
How
the
do
National
you-
Assembly
Well,
and
well,
the
How
Senate
do you-
should
I
do
don't,
as
assign
Toskin,
an
I
entire
disagree with
protest?
you when you talk about a one-man show.
Toskin,
Remember, Raila was elected with over 500 million votes.
Yes.
Yeah, so he has a following.
5 million
So,
votes. 5
5 million. So when we talk about CORD, he has people who follows him. Just like we have the government, the one with over the 50+1. So we should accept that for anything to go forward, we must give them a chance. We must give a fair ground for all players, so that at the end of the day, they're all comfortable that we have been represented, our views have been heard.
But Rosalind, in this instance, they are being given an olive branch, or somebody's extending out their hand and saying, "Come, let's talk," and then they're saying, "No, we don't want to." Meanwhile, we've been protesting because we want a solution. So, which solution do we really want? What's
But for me, from where I sit, I think we are not genuine. Both sides are not genuine. Remember when you wanted the IG to go, it was a constitutional office. The IG left. When we wanted the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commissioners to go, they left. And it was the same parliament that made them go. Why is it that now when it comes to IBC, let's stick
Double
to the
standards.
Constitution? It's double standard.
Yeah, and it's the leadership in the Senate and National Assembly
Yeah.
that's failing us. Period.
leadership affiliated to which party? Or are they just both playing with our minds at this rate?
Both.
Both parties, but then I think the responsibility really lies in the court because they want us, to buy the idea. They have to convince the country, but you cannot convince the country by going to the streets and causing mayhem. Yeah.
All right. Next, we're now joined by Edwin Sifuna, who's actually getting involved with that court case yesterday. Edwin, good evening.
Good evening, James.
Great. So let me just get your direct response from the General Interior Ministry banning all unlawful protests, if you like, and saying that court process have been nothing but peaceful. What's your response?
Yeah, I've just seen that on my chat group. It's absolutely ridiculous that anyone would think that in the Kenya we live in today, the government can actually ban peaceful protest. Off the bat, if you look at the very first statement of that, the very first sentence of that statement, Nkasheri seems to be suffering under the illusion that it is the government that allows this protest. He seems to forget that under this dispensation, the government has absolutely no role in granting the rights that pertain to Kenyans under the Constitution. So this is a statement that should be dismissed with the contempt that it deserves. You don't even need the judge of the High Court to tell you that this is a ridiculous or illegal order. First-year law students will tell you that this is a statement that has...
Well, Sifuna, let me just bring you back to the argument from the government, and it says that the protests have marked with looting. We've seen protesters armed, and
Yes.
pointing a case of Kisumu, we've seen that people are actually looting from a supermarket. So the government actually has a point. The protests have been nothing but,
That is a lazy point, because you will remember last time when we were before Justice Odunga arguing on the right of the coalition to meet at Uhuru Park, the court was very clear that it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that the people who are not taking part in the protest are actually protected from any elements within the protesters that would want to breach the requirement of the Constitution to actually be peaceful. So it is a dereliction of duty for the police to try and run away from their responsibility and then purport to curtail the rights. You will remember that the rights can only be curtailed in accordance with the law by the enactment of a law that would seek to curtail the enjoyment of those rights. But you cannot just wake up like Nkaiseri is doing and pass such an edict. It is not possible in the current day, Kenya.
Okay, Mr. Sifuna, you're talking to Roslyn. And
Yes.
my concern here is that I've not had court talk about the looting. The way
Why should
that
court talk about the looting? It's not their business. The business of the police is to protect the life and property of innocent people who are not taking part in the protest. That's their job. Those are the parties
my concern
that
here is my concern here. I'm not saying
Yes.
that court should not talk about that,
Yes.
because as leaders we have responsibility to also lead our supporters. As much
Yes.
as we are exercising our democratic right, we
Yes.
should also hear from our leaders speaking on the ills that are happening, because we cannot just
Well,
say that the
I
supporters
am
were
sure-
hurt and we are not getting any negative connotations from you people that you're also concerned with what is happening, because I'm
First of
sure
all, Roslyn,
after
I
what
don't-
happened, the economy of Kisumu has gone down.
What do you mean? Which numbers do you have to show that the economy of
I'm
Kisumu
not,
has
I'm
gone
not
down?
talking about
And I
numbers,
am
but you
sure-
can see
just,
there was
give me
supermarkets
a
and
moment
properties
to
destroyed.
respond to what you have said. I am sure that you watched the interview that happened before the Monday rally and the launch of the peace marshals within the people who are supposed to maintain peace during the protest. And you saw photographs, then it was covered widely by the media of those peace marshals actually blocking even some of the, accessing the IEBC offices. We saw reports of youth actually even attacking some of the other elements who would want to cause unrest during the protest. So when you say you people, I don't know first of all who you people means, but it is
Sifuna.
not the responsibility of the protesters to maintain peace. That is a responsibility that vested in the state. You should ask Kaiseri. Don't ask me.
Sifuna, you are
Yes.
talking to Robin Toskin. And
Yes.
as an editor at The Standard, I've got the privilege to access some of the photographs from the ground where the protesters were carrying crude weapons. And you can agree with me that such crude weapons are not just meant for peaceful protest. And I'm espousing the idea that it's the duty of parties to educate their members on how to picket. Do you share in that idea?
All right, I think we might have lost Edwin Sifuna there, who's answering questions about the code protest and the right to protest. However, we're asking you on Twitter, we'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you think the government is within its right to ban court demonstrations? Do you think the government is within its right to ban court demonstrations? That's following General Kaiseri's brief today of banning all the protests. We'd like to take a short break. When we come back, we have plenty more on the other side of the break, including the Supreme crisis. Don't go too far. This is News Sources.
The Twitter poll we had earlier was, is the government within its right to ban court demonstrations? Is the government within its right to ban court demonstrations? Toskin, do you have any tweets there so far?
Not showing.
Trying to find out.
Right, we'll get to that, to the comments on Twitter shortly.
We have,
but
we have a comment from Peter Santoni,
Yes.
who says that the more they try to stop demos, the more rebellion increases. Besides, the High Court ruled in court's favor. And then we have Okolowaka says that that is an unconstitutional pronouncement, just like the previous one. Constitutional rights are supreme. That is Okolowaka saying. And then we have Bernard Lewela saying, absolutely not. Not from the same government, seeing nothing wrong with police killing innocent citizens.
So the general mood is that it's our constitutional right to peaceful protest. I must say peaceful there again, and it's really going back to the old ages if we're going back to banning demonstrations. But moving on, that age-old question continues to persist at the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Dr. William Mutunga and the panel of judges have started receiving preliminary objections on a matter that is quickly running out of time.
And I am saying to you, the 5 judges, quash the decision of the Chief Justice for the sake of the country. You must quash it.
He just changed the date of the hearing date because the matter was under certificate. He said instead of the case being had on 24th July, we can hear it much earlier. Is that, my Lord, general direction and control of the judiciary as provided for by Section 5.1, Section 5.2c, 2c, my apologies. My Lord, that is clearly such a case. The Chief Justice has powers.
For a party to deal with a case where they directly and personally are the litigants, that is a substantial prejudice against the interests of the respondents.
That is where we are, the supreme crisis, if you like. Things are, basically this thing is just running out of time, all right? The Justice William Mutunga today had to take, a medical break, because he had, a medical situation to take care of. Tomorrow morning, activist Tokyo Mtata will be in front of him, and his point is arguing is very simple, that all the judges must recuse themselves from the sitting because all of them have a conflict of interest. That's where we are. Let's start with you, Jay.
I think one of the functions of the Supreme Court under the Constitution is to build a rich body of jurisprudence and to create laws that are vibrant. And I think what we're seeing with these arguments are people trying to create a body of law. Because these questions seem to be pretty clear-cut. With the 70 or the 74, it seems to be within the law on either side. So somebody should just come out and make a decision. But instead, we're going around.
Who's that somebody? Because that's the question. Who's that somebody?
In the meantime, though, I don't know who that somebody is. But in the meantime, we seem to be just arguing legal issues and not really solving the problem.
Smart, when we began this program, you said that this is a program where we give our personal opinion, and let me make these remarks. That
personal remarks.
That slowly by slowly, I'm losing, confidence in this constitutionalism altogether and the law, because I may be persuaded now to revert to the Sabaot customary law, because the law is not even written. The customary law is not even written, but we always follow it to the letter that's not even on the books. But what happens here is really despicable, that we have people that we've entrusted the responsibility to make sure that this country is in safe hands, just going round and round in circles. It's high time that even the public does even demonstrate and even picket against this Supreme Court.
Toshkin has lost appetite on this constitutional thing. Rosalind, have you also lost appetite on this thing?
I think I'm definitely with Toshkin, because this is something that has been dragging. This is the highest court in the land.
Yes.
That it's the last stop for any issue that we have. Now, if this is the court where the people we entrust, the bench, are not getting along to the extent that we can even see the emails that are shifting between the Chief Justice and one of the bench members, then it is really a crisis.
It actually is, because it's supposed to be kind of like the final bastion of good sense. Yes. And all good sense has flown out the window. So where to from here, James?
And especially that Willy Mutua is one of those members of, you remember the Ufungamano or House movement in the 90s, that they really fought for reform, especially in the law and all that. Now, 2010, we promulgate a constitution that now ought to guide us. Yet, we see him is about just to retire on June 16th. He should be leaving office. That shows that he has failed in his leadership. He should have anticipated all this, because we entrusted him with that responsibility.
I'm noticing a trend here with you and individuals, individuals and institutions. But here's the thing, I think that the problem is much bigger than that. I think the problem is just the politics of this country, the grubby and dirty politics in this country, because
which is perpetuated by individuals.
Exactly. But this Supreme Court ought to be in this problem if individuals had not figured that they wanted to influence the appointment of the next CJ, because that's where we are. Our politics has meddled into our, if you like, constitution, and that I think is the problem.
I think so, because look at it, when Jokin Dungu said that the case will come on the 24th, they were anticipating by then the Chief Justice will have gone home, and by bringing the case forward so that he will be in part of the bench, then it shows that this is a succession war. And this is something that if we can't sort out now, because if the others are sticking in office and he has volunteered to leave at 70, what are they still doing there? Can we have fresh people come in?
Fair enough. But in all this, with the politicians and Parliament and IEBC and the Supreme Court, where are the people of Kenya? Is anybody keeping our interests at heart? Or are we going to be told we voted these people in, we created these laws, now we live with them because it's a democratic process? As in, how do we participate?
Maybe you have an answer from the sub-out.
The support customer law.
Do they have an answer for this?
Could even help out this, because it is straightforward. You had Kanjama say that really it is prejudicial of whatever we say, that for Kalpana Rawal to even say that Mutunga can go home because she can even preside over her own case. That is to tell you that this court does not even hold the populace in high regard if they can say that they can prosecute their own case. It's really wrong.
I think we are in a very sorry state of affairs, because what we are seeing is judicial activism, whereby we have people who are not putting our interests at heart. Everybody is struggling to satisfy their needs. Because when we came with the new constitution, when we set up the Supreme Court, we knew we were going to have a new list. There are things that are happening now that you won't see in the past constitution or with the other Chief Justice.
It would have been impossible for us to see this. It
would have been impossible.
Right.
These days you can even know the ruling before even the case is heard.
That's very serious. Let's still on this Supreme crisis.
Yeah.
Justice Njoki Ndongo conduct is set to be investigated by the JSC. The High Court threw out her protestations after Apollo Mboya filed a petition to have her investigated over the order she gave allowing DCJ Kalpana Rawal's appeal to the Supreme Court, well, spiking the current crisis. So, Justice Njoki Ndongo, as this runs, she's concurrently, also, going to be investigated by the JSC for her conduct on something that I think is also being investigated or being talked about in the Supreme Court, because the lawyers there are saying, well, she was the duty judge, others saying she was not the duty judge, and the CJ says he should have given a go at this, as the president of the Supreme Court.
I think to side with Toskin, there is actually a lack of leadership. No one knows. You were asking me who's supposed to make that final say. The thing is, we don't know. We're going round in circles, filing suits left, right, and center, arguing cases, but never coming to a conclusion. And it's going into an election year. It's actually very scary that things are so uncertain at this point in time.
And that's why I worry a lot when we have these judicial activists. I know the history of Njoki Ndongo. Yeah. She was in the fight for democracy, expansion of democracy, and we expected a lot from them. But when she fixes a date to June 24th, knowing very well the president of the Supreme Court is going home on June 16th, that tells you that there's something.
Are you casting aspersion on a judge of the Supreme Court?
I think it's time. It's time we talk about these things, because in the developed world, we even don't talk about sub judice or whatever, because we expect the Court of Appeal judges to be above reproach. But what we've seen, if whatever like Kalpana Rawal is even saying that her terminal benefits, retirement benefits, should be calculated until she's 74. That is telling you that what she's putting above everything else is her remuneration, but not the constitutional crisis that's about to engulf this country.
So it's important people don't eat constitution. I mean, at the end of the day, I keep saying this. People
but
don't
eat
these
things.
But
I think again, also don't forget that we must have the number. We have to have a number for the bench to be properly constituted.
Right.
So because of that, if the Chief Justice was to go home and we already have people who are interested parties, which is Rawal and Tunoi, then we already have a crisis in our hands.
We must throw this in. Today, the NIS is credited that document that was used, that initially by JSC to instigate, this tribunal for Tunoi. I mean, that's something that we must discuss tomorrow. But they've said it doesn't belong from them.
So essentially, there is no basis to judge
exactly
Tunoi.
The sitting on the Tunoi thing is, it is nothing.
It is predictable in this country. Ranging from police investigations, now we've seen what the NSIS has said. That whenever they want to bungle a case, they just have to miss a step. Someone conveniently leaked out the NSIS report that was used by the JSC to put together the case against Tunoi. But then, conveniently again, it lacked the signature.
Isn't that an indictment on the Chief Justice and the JSC and everyone else?
That's what
But
I've
I
been
think
saying.
it's
That's
high
what I've
time
been
we
saying.
speak about it because
Yeah.
we are heading to the elections. We will need a substantive Chief Justice in office. If here we are, the Chief Justice is going, the deputy who is supposed to step in is fighting over retirement issues and still wants to stay in office, and the succession plan is high and everybody wants to succeed them, then indeed we have a problem in our hands.
Well,
And
from
Mutunga should remain in office until he clears all this mess.
This
That would be
mess.
unconstitutional. And you just lost it over that question. Julie.
From matters constitutional to a bit of a lighter note, Uganda's most popular politician, President Yoweri Museveni, has finally announced his cabinet. It consists of 81 members, ministers of virtually everything you can imagine. Museveni has named the country's first lady, his wife, to cabinet as the education and sports minister. Just a few weeks ago, his son Muhoozi was promoted to Major General in the country's military. What do you think of that?
Really, we've lost it. We've
Jungle-
lost it as a
jungle-
continent.
jungle government.
As Pan-Africanists, I think we've lost it. And what the Museveni has done tells you that he's captive to ethnic forces. Because what he has done, he's spread all those cabinet ministries to all those communities that are living in Uganda.
There's a minister for, I think, disaster preparedness
Yes.
in the office of the president,
Yes.
and minister for preparedness of disaster in the office of the prime
I
minister.
think his brother
And
and
then-
sister Ben
and then there is the minister in charge of general duties, stroke office of the PM. Yet down there, he's talking about state ministers. Why should we have, again, minister without portfolio and nothing else? That is another job.
Does it mean that maybe his re-election, he feels somehow guilty and he wants to bring everybody on board? Maybe that could also be another
Well,
issue.
concerning his wife, she lives with him, she gives him counsel. So she's
Also an MP.
also an MP,
yeah.
but pillow talk, so she's giving him good advice, helping run the country. So why not give her a substantive position
One
just to
of the
recognize her
ministers, one of the
contributions?
ministers named in that list is from a different party, and she has been put into the NRM movement. And that has also been replicated here in this country, that we get ourselves in a political crisis and then we talk about government of national unity. And then
grand
we start
coalition
a
government
grand
of some sort.
coalition. We now start cannibalizing other parties. That is exactly what Museveni is doing. And I think he's actually hostage to those ethnic interests. And he should
Do you know what's fantastic about this? In 1986, Museveni said, and I quote, that the problem with Africa, and Uganda in particular, is leaders who overstay their
In
welcome
office.
and their mandate.
And
It's
then-
so
and
poignant
How
and so
quickly we
fantastic.
forget.
One minister.
And he has done the same. You can see when Robert Mugabe was elected the president of Zimbabwe, I think he was the best president and we saw a reformist for Africa. But when he overstayed his welcome in office, what do we see? He has become a redundant. Now he's not giving us direction.
But then people would say, and I mean, it's a fallacious discussion. They say, well, who asks the Queen? It's the head of state of
He's the
England.
head of state.
Yeah.
But I think it is
That's
also
slightly
atrocity.
different because the Queen is more ceremonial. She's not
Ceremonial,
involved
yeah.
in appointing her brothers, sisters, and their cat to parliament or cabinet.
Well,
So
the family has quite a substantive kind of cash, to walk around and do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's taxpayers' money. But it's a fallacious argument, I'm saying.
But remember, he has appointed a minister for Karamoja and a minister of state for Karamoja. And then there's a minister of state for Luero Triangle. If you go back to history, 1986, when he through the government of Tito Okello Lutua, Luero Triangle was one of the zones that had the fiercest of battles. Maybe he wants to appoint him to reconstruct that area and endear himself to those people, because the people of Luero are still very bitter with the kind of death they witnessed in 1986.
And I also think this is what happens when, for years and years and years, maybe the Ugandan people didn't want him, but they did nothing to prevent him from coming back into office. So now maybe he feels, I can just do what I want.
Yeah, because it's last term anyway. He can do
Last
whatever
term,
he wants.
well,
he said it's last.
well,
we hope it is.
Rosalind, please
hope.
do not be quoted
We
saying.
hope. We hope.
Do not be quoted
I
saying.
said we
that-
hope.
Not on news sources. It is not his last term. He's young. He's fresh. He just got re-elected the other day
Very popular.
and has a fantastic brand new cabinet.
A
with
bright
brand-
future.
Fantastic. Finally, we end with the Deputy President, William Ruto. Believe it or not, He was once Cyrus Jirongo's errand boy. And I said it again, he was once Cyrus Jirongo's errand boy. Take a listen to this.
Najua my brother Jirongo saa zingine anakasirika na mimi kwa sababu zamani nilikuwa mti yake ya mkono. Sasa anakasirika na mimi sasa, anaona huyu ambaye alikuwa mti yake ya mkono alipitia wapi hapa mpaka aka. Lakini unajua my friend, ni kujipanga na nilikwambia. Mimi sikatai nilikuwa mtu yako ya mkono, lakini sasa unanikasirikia ya nini? Na sasa hii ni maneno ya Mungu. Ama namna gani jamani? Nilikwambia hii siasa peleka namna hii polepole, usifanye sana namna ile itaharibika. Naona mimi nakaa nyuma ya Uhuru Kenyatta najipanga hapo polepole. I know what I'm doing, my friend. Unafikiri nikilete fujo kwa huyu jamaa ata ala? Tuendelee namna hiyo. Na tumesoma kutoka historia. Hata Nyayo alikaa nyuma ya baba ya huyu jamaa akakuwa kitu. Huyu rafiki yangu mwingine alikuja akalete fujo hapo kwa Kibaki, sasa yeye hapo msituni. Usipange mzuri. Maana itaendelea na.
All right. Well, must say this is DP at his best politically. You're sorting out two problems. Number one, the fact that he's seen to always not have anything, to ruffle, President Uhuru Kenyatta. I mean, he's someone who is considered as a abrasive character.
Yeah.
But, so he's explaining why he's always, behind Uhuru, and now he has to play humble. But secondly, and most importantly, trying to sort out his history, all right? His history, coming down from the days of the 90s when he was essentially an errand boy for the YK92 team.
Ruto's friends that I've interacted with, especially from the YK92, really attest to the fact that this is a very organized guy. He's a wily guy. He's a guy who can go an extra mile.
He's a workaholic.
He's a workaholic. And what he's saying is essentially true. But the only thing that maybe he needs to guard on is sometimes he goes overboard, to ruffle the feathers of his political opponents. Although they all agree, friends and foe agree that he's a sharp guy.
All right, yes, Cyrus Jirongo, his former boss, and has taken him since the Jacob Juma's, death, and say, I know these boys because they worked for me. That is a response. How do you find it?
Well, I refuse to comment on the politics, on the history. All I will say is that Ruto has a killer sense of humor, and that really made us laugh because, hey, 10-0, he really roasted that guy, and it was funny.
Leslie?
Yeah, I think it's something people didn't expect because Jirongo has been fiery against the DP, and we always take him to be somebody who's trash on and hits. But this time around, he just did it in a way that he said, fine, this was my past, and in any way, I've gone up, and you're still down
and
here.
And it's testament to a hustler,
yes.
Self-proclaimed.
And he has always said it. He always said he
coming
had,
from literally from grass to grace and getting all the way almost
which
to the top.
we need to give to him.
Yes.
Yeah, hard work.
It's a testament to his hard work, etc., etc.
He always has a way of, with words, and how he takes on his opponents. I remember anytime he wants to hit out at the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and he says, ule jamaa wa vitendawili. Everybody just goes, But then I think Ruto knows what he's doing. He knows the kind of battlefield he has to go through in order to get to where he wants to. But then it's up to now Jirongo, to sit back and then
and respond.
Come back, just respond. The media will always give him the platform.
I think so. I think a comeback from Jirongo is long overdue.
I think so too, because Jirongo was a big name, I think, when we were very young. So I think he's somebody who has a big role in the political landscape.
We will have him tomorrow on Right of Reply.
Well, with our Twitter poll earlier today, we asked you, is the government within its right to ban court demonstrations? And final results in are yes, 45%, and no, 55%. So just over half of the people who participated saying that no, it's not within its rights.
Absolutely. Put that with what Ipsos Innovate out today. 72% of Kenyans say just the removal of IBC commissioners will return faith to the commission. let's end it there. On News Sources, Rosalie Nobala, Robin Toskin,
Thank you.
and Julie. You've all done very well. That's News Sources. Don't go too far. Stay tuned. Linda Gutu is up next with the day's primetime news.